The ship was small. That was the first thing everyone noticed. When the human vessel entered the docking bay of Nexus Station, gathered diplomats and officials looked at each other with confusion. The Great Hall could hold warships that stretched for kilometers. The human ship was barely larger than a personal transport. Ambassador Jin Ho stepped out first. He was a tall man with calm eyes and gray hair at his temples. Behind him came Captain Yuna, a woman with sharp features in a military uniform that looked plain compared to the golden armor of the Velthrani guards. Last came Hanbin, younger than the others, carrying nothing but a small bag. 3 humans. That was all. The Velthrani High Speaker stood at the center of the Great Hall. His scales shimmered purple and gold under the lights. Around him sat representatives of the 12 elder species beings who had ruled this galaxy for thousands of years. They controlled trade routes, military forces, and the laws that governed a million worlds. They had watched humanity for decades. Small colonies, modest ships, technology that seemed primitive compared to their own. When humans finally requested a meeting with the Galactic Council, most expected them to beg for protection or offer themselves as servants. The High Speaker raised one clawed hand. The hall fell silent. "Humans," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You stand before the Galactic Council. We have ruled these stars since before your species learned to make fire. Speak your purpose." Gin Ho walked forward. His footsteps were the only sound in the massive hall. He stopped at the proper distance, bowed once, not deep, just polite, and held out a small data chip. "Earth's requests equal membership in the Galactic Council," he said. His voice was quiet, but clear. Nothing more. Silence followed, then laughter. The Morthax representative, a massive creature covered in black armor that seemed to grow from his own body, slammed his fist on his seat. "Equal membership. These insects want to sit with us?" More laughter spread through the chamber. The Silvari delegate, a being made of flowing light and crystal, flickered with amusement. "Perhaps we should assign them as a labor species. The Velthrani could use more workers in their mining operations." The Velthrani High Speaker smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Humanity has courage, I will admit. Foolish courage, but courage still." He leaned forward. "Let me explain something to you, human. Your entire fleet could not scratch the paint on a single Velthrani battleship. Your colonies exist because we allow them to exist. Your people breathe because we have not decided otherwise." He waited for a response. Everyone waited. Jin Ho said nothing. The High Speaker's smile faded slightly. "Do you understand what I am telling you? Your species is insignificant. You have no power here, no voice, no rights, except those we choose to give you." Still, Gin Ho remained silent. His face showed no fear, no anger, no expression at all. Behind him, Yuna and Hanbin stood just as quietly. The Morthax representative growled. "Perhaps they are stupid. Perhaps they do not understand our language." "They understand," said a quiet voice from the corner of the hall. Everyone turned. In the shadows sat the Keeper of Records, an ancient being whose species had no name that other races could pronounce. The Keepers had observed galactic civilization since before the elder species rose to power. They recorded everything, but never interfered. "They understand perfectly," the Keeper continued. Its voice was like wind through dry leaves. "They simply choose not to respond." The High Speaker waved his hand dismissively. "Then they waste our time. Humanity's request is denied. You may return to your small corner of the galaxy and be grateful we do not take it from you." Jin Ho bowed once more again, just polite, nothing more, and turned to leave. Yuna and Hanbin followed without a word. As they walked toward their ship, the laughter resumed behind them. The Morthax representative called out insults. The Silvari made jokes about human lifespans. The Velthrani guards did not even bother to escort them properly, but the Keeper of Records did not laugh. Instead, it watched the 3 humans with ancient eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. It had seen species beg for mercy in this hall. It had seen species make threats they could not support. It had seen species weep with fear and rage. It had never seen species simply say nothing. As the human ship departed from Nexus Station, the Keeper accessed its oldest files. Records from long ago, before the current elder species claimed power. Records of beings that once made the galaxy tremble, not with threats or displays of force, but with silence. The Voidwalkers had been like that. They never warned. They never announced their intentions. When they acted, it was sudden and absolute. The Silent Collective had been similar. They watched for centuries, said nothing, and when they finally moved, entire civilizations vanished. The Keeper looked at the human ship growing smaller in the distance. Such a small ship. Such a small species. So easy to ignore. But there had been something in the human ambassador's eyes. Not fear. The Keeper had seen enough fear to recognize it anywhere. Not anger, though the insults had been many. Not even pride, though the humans had refused to bow properly. It was something else. Something patient. Something waiting. The Keeper recorded its observation in files that no one would read. Humanity arrived today. They were mocked. They were dismissed. They were threatened. They said nothing. This concerns me greatly. In the Great Hall, the celebration continued. The elder species congratulated themselves on putting the humans in their place. The High Speaker ordered special drinks to mark the occasion. Stories would be told for years about the foolish insects, who thought they deserved equality. No one noticed that the human ship did not fly toward Earth. Instead, it changed course toward the outer territories, toward the regions where the forgotten species lived. The slaves. The conquered, the ignored. The first meeting was over. Humanity had said nothing, and that was exactly how they wanted it. 5 years passed like water through open fingers. The galaxy continued as it always had. The Velthrani grew richer. The Morthax grew stronger. The elder species traded and fought and made alliances. Never looking twice at the small human colonies on the edge of known space, humanity asked for nothing. They complained about nothing. They simply existed, quiet and small, exactly as the Council expected. When pirates attacked human trading ships near the border regions, no complaint was filed. The Council received only a brief report weeks later. The pirates had been dealt with. No details were given. The Council did not ask for any. When a Velthrani warship accidentally fired upon a human research station, killing 200 scientists, Ambassador Jinho traveled to Nexus Station once more. He filed a single formal protest, read aloud in the Great Hall. His voice was calm. His face showed nothing. The Council promised to investigate. They never did. Jinho returned to human space without another word. They have learned their place, the Morthax representative announced at a celebration dinner. The insects understand now. They know they are nothing. In the corner of the room, a human woman named Salman smiled politely and refilled her drink. She wore the simple uniform of a trade attached a minor diplomatic position that no one important bothered to notice. She had attended dozens of these dinners over the past 3 years. She knew the names of every council official, their habits, their secrets, their weaknesses. She excused herself early, as she always did. In her small quarters, she sent a coded transmission to Earth. Phase 2 complete. They have stopped watching. Far from Nexus Station, Captain Yuna commanded the HSS Silence, a patrol vessel that Council intelligence had labeled unremarkable in their files. She ran standard routes, escorted trading ships, trained her crew in exercises that looked routine. They were not routine. Every patrol brought new data. Every escort mission mapped another region of space. Every training exercise tested new tactics that no one in the galaxy had ever seen. The crew of the Silence never spoke about their work, not even to their families. They simply did their jobs and waited. Yuna stood on the bridge one night, looking at the stars. Her first officer, a young man named Doan, approached with a report. The Velthrani have increased patrols near our colonies, he said. They are watching us more closely. Yuna nodded. Let them watch. They will see exactly what we want them to see. And what is that, Captain? She turned to face him. Her eyes were calm, patient, like deep water. A species that has learned its place. On the mining world of Kethfer, Hanbin sat in a small room with 30 Lithari children. The Lithari were a gentle species, tall and thin, with skin like pale stone and eyes that glowed soft blue. For 10,000 years, the council had used them as slaves. They worked in mines, on farms, and factories. They had forgotten what freedom meant. Hanbin taught them music. It started small, simple songs from Earth. Children's rhymes about sunshine and rain and growing things. The Lithori had never heard such songs. Their masters had forbidden music long ago. "Why do you teach us these things?" asked a young Lithori named Kel. "We are workers. We have no need for songs." Unbean smiled and handed her a small instrument. "Everyone needs songs. Music reminds us that we are alive, that we are more than our work." He taught them other things too. History, not council history, but the true history of how their species was conquered and enslaved. Literature stories about beings who refused to accept their chains. Philosophy, ideas about freedom, dignity, and the right of all thinking creatures to choose their own path. The council never noticed. Why would they? A minor human diplomat teaching songs to slave children. It meant nothing. But the songs spread, from Kethfor to other mining worlds, from children to adults, from the Lithri to other enslaved species. Quietly, slowly, an idea began to grow in the dark places of the galaxy, an idea that things did not have to remain as they were. Back on Earth, plans were being made in secret shipyards hidden inside nebulae that the Council had never bothered to explore. New vessels were being built. Not hundreds, thousands. Ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Fast. Silent, deadly. In military academies, officers studied Council tactics and found weaknesses. In intelligence centers, analysts compiled data from agents like Saman, maps of every military base, every supply route, every communication relay, in diplomatic offices. Quiet agreements were signed with species the Council had forgotten. The Lithri were not the only ones who remembered what freedom meant. 7 species joined humanity in secret, small, weak species that the elder races had dismissed as insignificant. Together, they were not so small. Together, they were not so weak. Ambassador Ginho reviewed the reports in his office one evening. 5 years of silence. 5 years of insults. 5 years of watching his people die while the Council laughed, his assistant. A young woman named Yunji brought him tea. "The Council has scheduled another meeting," she said. "They want to discuss reducing human trading rights in the outer territories." "I will attend," Ginho said calmly. "Will we protest?" He sipped his tea and looked out the window at the stars. "No, we will listen politely. We will bow properly. We will say nothing." "Ambassador, may I ask how long we will continue this way?" Jinho set down his cup. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, something hard and cold and patient. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual calm expression. "The old keeper of records once told me something interesting," he said. "It said that the most dangerous species in galactic history never made threats. They never gave warnings. They simply waited until the time was right, and then they acted." He turned back to the window. "We are almost ready, Yunji. The Council believes we have accepted our place. They believe we are afraid. They believe we are weak. And what do we believe, Ambassador?" Jinho smiled, a small, quiet smile that did not reach his eyes. "We believe that patience is a weapon, and ours is almost sharp enough." The Morthax fleet arrived without warning. 300 warships surrounded the human colony worlds of New Busan, Hinam, and Jindo. They blocked all traffic in and out. They aimed weapons at cities where 2 million humans lived their ordinary lives. Admiral Kreth, commander of the Morthax fleet, sent a simple message to the colonies: surrender all assets, prepare for deportation, and thank the Galactic Council for its mercy. The humans sent no reply. News spread across the galaxy within hours. Screens in every station, every planet. Every ship showed images of the massive Morthax blockade surrounding the tiny human worlds. Commentators discussed what would happen next. Most expected humanity to beg the Council for help. 12 hours passed. Silence. 20-4 hours. Still silence. The Morthax grew impatient. Admiral Kreth sent another message, this time with a deadline. You have 48 hours to comply. After that, we will begin eliminating your cities one by one. No reply came. On Nexus Station, the Velthrani High Speaker watched the situation with amusement. The insects have finally frozen with fear, he announced. They know they cannot fight. They know no one will help them. Soon they will crawl to us and beg. The Keeper of Records watched from its corner. It said nothing, but its ancient eyes followed every report with growing unease. The 48th hour arrived. Admiral Kreth prepared to make an example of New Busan. His weapons officers locked targets on the capital city. 500,000 humans lived there, men, women, children, going about their morning routines. Open fire on my command, Kreth ordered. His claw hovered over the command console. He never pressed it. At that exact moment, every sensor on every Morthax ship went dark. Every weapon system failed. Every engine stopped. For 3 seconds, the entire fleet drifted in complete silence. Then the humans arrived. Captain. Yuna's fleet emerged from behind the small moon of Hinnom. 400 ships that the Council had never known existed. They moved like shadows, fast and silent. They did not announce themselves. They did not demand surrender. They simply opened fire. The battle lasted 11 minutes. It was not a fight. It was a demonstration. Human weapons cut through Morthax armor like it was paper. Human ships moved in patterns that Morthax computers could not predict. Every time the Morthax tried to regroup, they found human vessels already waiting for them. Admiral Kreth watched from his command bridge as his fleet died around him. Ship after ship exploded in silent flames. Escape pods were allowed to flee, but the warships were given no mercy. When it was over, only the Morthax flagship remained, drifting powerless. Surrounded by human vessels, Yuna's ship approached. A docking tube connected to the flagship's hull. Minutes later, Captain Yuna walked onto Kreth's bridge with a squad of human soldiers. Kreth expected demands, threats, gloating. He had seen other species celebrate their victories with great speeches and humiliating ceremonies. Yuna said nothing. She walked past his officers, past his guards, and stopped directly in front of him. In her hand was a single data chip. She placed it on his command console. A formal protest, she said quietly. For the 200 scientists your allies killed 5 years ago, for every insult, for every threat, for every laugh, she turned and walked back toward her ship. At the door, she paused. Tell the Council that humanity has nothing more to say. We have said everything that needed to be said. Then she was gone. The news reached Nexus Station within the hour. Emergency sessions were called. Diplomats screamed at each other. The Velthrani High Speaker demanded explanations, answers. Retribution Ambassador Jinho arrived alone. The Great Hall was chaos when he entered. Species that had not spoken in decades were shouting accusations. Military commanders were demanding war. Politicians were trying to calm everyone down. Ginho walked to the center of the hall and placed something on the floor. The shouting stopped. It was Admiral Kreth's command badge, the symbol of Morthax military authority. Every officer who saw it understood its meaning. Kreth had surrendered it personally. We filed a protest once, Jinho said into the silence. His voice was soft, but it carried through the entire chamber. For our research station. For 200 scientists who were murdered, you laughed. You promised to investigate. You did nothing. He looked around the hall at the faces of beings who had mocked his species for 5 years. We have been filing protests internally ever since that day. Every insult, every threat, every time you called us insects. He paused. This is our response. The Morthax representative stepped forward, his black armor shaking with rage. You have declared war on the Galactic Council. Your species will be destroyed. Every human world will burn. Ginho looked at him with calm, empty eyes. We have declared nothing. We made no threats. We gave no warnings. We simply protected our people from an illegal military action. He bowed once polite, proper, and walked toward the door. Ambassador. The High Speaker shouted. You will answer for this. You will explain yourselves. Jinho stopped, but did not turn around. We have nothing more to explain. You had 5 years to take us seriously. You chose to laugh instead. You left without another word. In the silence that followed, the Keeper of Records spoke for the first time in decades. Its voice was like dead leaves scraping across stone. I warned you once long ago about species like this. You did not listen. The High Speaker turned to the ancient being. What do you mean? What species? The Keeper's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. Species that do not threaten. Species that do not warn. Species that simply wait and watch and remember everything. It paused. You should have feared their silence more than any army. Now you will learn why. Fear spread through the council like fire through dry grass in the days following the destruction of the Morthax fleet. Every elder species demanded answers. How had humanity built such ships? How had they hidden them? How had 300 Morthax warships been destroyed in 11 minutes? Intelligence officers worked day and night. They searched records, analyzed data, and slowly began to understand how badly they had been fooled. The first discovery came from the Lethor mining worlds. Council inspectors found that production had dropped by 30% over the past 3 years. Machinery had been breaking down. Supply shipments had been delayed. No one had noticed because no one cared about slave workers. But the breakdowns were not accidents. Human engineers, volunteers who had worked alongside, Hanbin's cultural programs had been quietly sabotaging critical systems. The materials needed to build Council warships were sitting in broken machines and lost shipments. The second discovery came from Summon's network. When Council intelligence finally investigated the human trade attaches, they found that these minor diplomats had mapped every military installation in Council space. They knew patrol schedules, communication codes, and supply routes. They knew which admirals were corrupt and which ones were competent. They knew everything. Salmon herself had vanished 3 days after the Morthax battle. Her quarters were empty. Her files were erased. The only thing she left behind was a small note that said, "Thank you for the access." The third discovery was the worst. Human shipyards had been operating in nebulae that the Council had never explored. Why would they? Empty space held no value. But humanity had found value in being overlooked. They had built thousands of ships incomplete. Secrecy vessels designed specifically to counter Council. Technology, and they were not alone. 7 minor species had signed secret defense agreements with Earth, the Lethar, the Cathani, the Pale Wanderers, species that the Council had ignored, enslaved, or forgotten. Alone, each was weak. Together with human weapons and human training, they were an army. The Velthrani High Speaker called an emergency war council. He demanded immediate action. We will crush them before they grow stronger. Our combined fleets outnumber theirs 10 to 1. We will burn their worlds and end this threat forever. 3,000 Velthrani warships gathered at the border of human space. It was the largest fleet assembled in a century. Generals boasted that the battle would last only hours, Captain. Una met them at Haniel's station with 400 ships. The Velthrani admiral laughed when he saw the small human fleet. They are brave, I will admit. Foolish, but brave. He ordered the attack. The first wave of Velthrani ships charged forward with weapons blazing. Human vessels scattered like frightened birds. The Velthrani cheered. Then the trap closed. Human ships had positioned themselves in a pattern that looked like retreat, but was actually a net. When the Velthrani charge reached its deepest point, the net tightened. Suddenly, the massive Velthrani warships found themselves surrounded by smaller, faster human vessels that struck from every direction. Council technology was powerful but slow. Human technology was precise and quick. Council tactics relied on overwhelming force. Human tactics relied on movement and surprise. The battle lasted 3 hours. But the result was decided in the first 30 minutes. When the smoke cleared, 2,000 Velthrani ships drifted as burning wreckage. Another 800 had surrendered. The remaining 200 were fleeing toward Council space. Yuna's fleet had lost 47 vessels. She boarded the Velthrani flagship personally. Walking through corridors filled with shocked officers and terrified crew, no one tried to stop her. They had seen what human weapons could do. The Velthrani admiral waited on his bridge. His golden scales had turned pale with fear. Yuna stood before him, small and calm and terrifying. "You killed 200 of our scientists and laughed," she said. "You enslaved the Lithari for 10,000 years and called it peace. You mocked us in your halls and called us insects." She leaned closer. "Insects learn to wait. Insects learn to watch. And now, insects are everywhere. In your stations, in your networks, in the hearts of every species you ever hurt." She straightened and pulled out a communication device. "This message will be broadcast to every enslaved species in Council space. Coordinates for safe harbors. Instructions for escape. A promise." "What promise?" The Admiral whispered. "That if they want to be free, humanity will say nothing. We will make no speeches. We will sign no treaties. We will simply be there when they need us." She activated the broadcast. Across the galaxy, beings in chains lifted their heads. Lithori miners, Cathani farmers, pale wanderers in their prison ships. They heard the message. They saw the coordinates. And for the first time in generations, they felt something they had forgotten. Hope. On Nexus Station, the Keeper of Records watched the broadcast with ancient eyes. It had seen empires fall before. It had seen conquerors become conquered. It had seen the proud brought low by their own blindness, but it had never seen anything quite like this. Humanity was not conquering the Council. They were not demanding surrender or tribute. They were simply opening doors that the Council had locked long ago. They were reminding the galaxy that chains could be broken. The Keeper began a new record, one that would be studied for thousands of years to come. Humanity did not defeat the Galactic Council through force alone. They defeated it through patience. They waited until their enemies forgot to fear them. They built alliances with the forgotten. They turned silence into a weapon more powerful than any fleet. It paused, considering its next words carefully. The Council asked why humans never spoke. They should have asked what humans were waiting to say. 2 years changed everything. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked the same as it always had. High ceilings, its polished floors, seats arranged in a circle around the central platform. But the beings who sat in those seats were very different now. Half the positions belonged to species who had been slaves just 2 years ago. The Lithari representative sat in a seat of honor, her pale stone skin glowing with health instead of exhaustion. The Cathani delegate spoke with confidence that his ancestors had never known. The pale wanderers, once imprisoned in floating jails, now traveled freely between stars. The Velthrani still had a seat, but it was in the back row. They had lost their voting rights after the war. Their empire had shrunk to a handful of worlds. Their golden scales seemed dull now, as if the color had faded along with their power. The Morthax had no seat at all. Their government had collapsed into a dozen fighting factions. Warlords fought over scraps of territory. No one feared them anymore. Ambassador Ginho sat in humanity's seat. His hair was fully gray now. Lines marked his face that had not been there 7 years ago when he first walked into this hall. But his eyes were the same, calm, patient, unreadable. The new council had offered humanity the central seat, the position of leadership. The throne that the Velthrani had occupied for millennia, Ginho had refused. "We did not fight for power," he explained during the ceremony. "We fought for respect, for the right to be treated as equals, nothing more." The new council members did not fully understand. How could a species win such a victory and not claim everything? How could they have the strength to rule and choose not to? Today's session was a simple one. Trade agreements, border disputes, the ordinary business of a galaxy slowly healing from centuries of abuse. When the session ended, the Sylvari delegate approached Ginho. The Sylvari had survived the war by surrendering early. They had always been followers, not fighters. "Ambassador," the Sylvari said, its crystalline form flickering with nervous light. "May I ask you something?" Jinho nodded politely. "Of course. We never understood. We watched your species for years. We laughed at you. We called you insects. We threatened your worlds and killed your people." Sylvari paused. "Why did you never respond? Why did you never speak?" Ginho considered the question for a long moment. "Because words are easy," he said finally. "Anyone can make threats. Anyone can make promises. Anyone can beg for mercy or scream for revenge. We chose to be silent because silence required strength. But surely you wanted to fight back. Surely you were angry every day." Jinho's voice remained soft. "Every insult, every death, every time the council laughed at us, we remembered. We wrote it down. We carried it with us. Then why wait? Why not strike immediately?" Ginho looked at the Sylvari with those patient, endless eyes. "Because revenge is not justice. Anger is not strategy. If we had attacked when we were weak, we would have been destroyed. If we had attacked when we were strong but unprepared, we would have become what we hated." He stood and gathered his materials. "We waited until we could win not just a war, but a peace. Until we could free the enslaved, protect the weak, and build something better than what existed before." The Sylvari watched him go, understanding finally dawning in its ancient mind, far from the council hall, on a dozen different worlds. The heroes of the war lived quiet lives. Captain Yuna had retired from the military. She taught young officers at the Naval Academy now, Lotta walking them through strategies and tactics that had changed galactic warfare forever. Her students respected her. They feared her a little too. She was kind but demanding. Sometimes late at night, she stood at her window and looked at the stars. She remembered the battles, the ships burning in the dark, the faces of enemies who had expected mercy and received only justice. She did not regret what she had done, but she was glad it was over. Hanbin ran a cultural center on the Lithari homeworld. Children came there to learn music, art, and stories from 100 different species. The songs he had taught in secret were sung openly now. The ideas he had planted had grown into forests. A young Lithari girl asked him once why he had risked so much to help her people. "Because everyone deserves to sing," he said simply. "Everyone deserves to know that they matter." Salman had disappeared into the shadows of intelligence work. No one knew where she was or what she did. Occasionally, agents of the new council found evidence of her work, criminal networks exposed, threats neutralized, secrets uncovered. She never took credit. She never showed her face. She preferred it that way, and on Earth. In a small garden in Seoul, Ambassador Jinho sat with his granddaughter. The flowers were blooming. The sky was clear. Peace had finally come. The little girl was 5 years old. She knew her grandfather was important, but did not understand why. She only knew that he told good stories and always had time for her. "Grandfather," she said, "why did the aliens used to be mean to us?" Ginho smiled sadly. "Because they thought we were weak. Because they forgot that size and power are not the same thing. But we showed them, right? We were strong? We were patient," Ginho corrected gently. "Being strong means you can hurt others. Being patient means you choose when to act and when to wait. We waited until the right moment." The girl thought about this. Did they learn to be nice? Jinho looked up at the sky, where ships from 100 worlds now traveled in peace. "They are learning," he said. "Some lessons take time. Some beings need to see what their cruelty creates before they understand why kindness matters. Do you forgive them?" It was a question Ginho had asked himself many times. He thought about the research station, about 200 scientists who would never come home, about years of silence while his heart burned with anger. "Forgiveness is hard," he admitted, "but hatred is heavier. I choose to let it go, not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace." The little girl nodded, not fully understanding, but trusting her grandfather. "Will humans always be quiet?" she asked. Jinho smiled and pulled her close. "No, little one. We spoke when we needed to. But we learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Silence makes others wonder. Silence makes others afraid, and silence gives you time to become strong enough to protect everyone you love. He kissed her forehead.
I remember that.
Words are easy. Patience is hard. And kindness is a choice we make every single day, even when others do not deserve it. Above them, the stars shined on in silent agreement.